The prisoners arrived at Auschwitz naked, frozen by the cold and on the brink of death. They were beaten as they were taken off the train, with annihilation awaiting them ahead. But before that, they had to meet their captors and future murderers. Suddenly, an SS officer, looking at them with disdain, raised his voice to ask, "Who knows how to box?"
והיו איתנו שני מתאגרפים מקצועיים, שני הולנדים. ומשום מה, הרמתי גם אני את היד, ועד היום אני שואל את עצמי למה הרמתי את היד.
The inmates didn't know it yet, but German officers sought to satisfy their sadistic amusement by watching them tear each other's faces apart in deadly fights, where the ring was nothing but a cage that only opened when one of the contenders fell lifeless to the ground. Once again, the SS officer's question surprised the prisoners. Who knows how to box? Some, like Noah Cleger, responded out of instinct.
הרי לא הייתי מתאגרף. הייתי בן 16 וחצי. נכון, מומחה בקרבות רחוב, אבל קרבות רחוב זה לא אגרוף.
In this video, we invite you to step into a ring soaked with blood, to learn about the incredible stories of the boxers from the concentration camps. Men who fought for their lives, at the cost of having to strike their own comrades for the morbid entertainment of the Nazis. Let's begin. Boxing was a highly valued sport in Nazi Germany. It was a celebration of male power, of the qualities that defined the perfect man of the Third Reich, which is why it enjoyed incredible success during this time. Such was the influence of this activity that it became part of the hell of the concentration camps. SS officers and guards who worked in places like Auschwitz were eager for entertainment and something to distract them from the daily burden of annihilating thousands of people. The only thing they had at their disposal were desperate men who, for a ration of bread or a bowl of soup, were capable of anything. This was how clandestine fights were born within the extermination camps. The prize wasn't millions of dollars, recognition, or a shiny belt, but a miserable dinner that barely provided enough to regain strength. Those who lost were punished with a visit to the sinister showers of the facility.
This was not used as a bathhouse, but as a death chamber. Batches of prisoners were marched in here to die. When the chamber was full, the doors were shut and sealed. A man at the controls let in the poison gas, and another batch of helpless victims screamed their lives out beyond the grill.
One of the men recruited for that infamous competition was Noah Cleger. Because of his Jewish heritage, he was arrested and transported by train to Auschwitz. He would have never imagined that upon entering that factory of death, one of the first orders, or rather questions, he would hear would be, "Who knows how to box?" Cleger saw in this proposition a possible salvation. If they were looking for people to fight, those individuals wouldn't be executed, at least not immediately. That's why he was one of the few who raised his hand. In reality, he had no idea about the sport. He just knew he wanted to live and avoid at all costs the fate that awaited in the extermination section of the Nazi camps. Let's hear the story in his own words.
One man, his name was Heinrich Schwarz, the commander of Auschwitz III. He was a boxing freak, and he was looking for boxers in every transport that arrived. There were two pros with us, and I pointed, and I don't know why. I was no boxer. I was 16 years old. I couldn't have been a boxer. Why did I point? I don't know. But I had the impression that if they ask for boxers, it must be positive. It cannot be negative.
Those who claimed to know how to box were separated into a small group. There, Noah met Jacko Razin, a young professional wrestler of Jewish and Greek descent, nicknamed Zemento. Due to his experience and championships won in his homeland, the Greek was nominated as a sort of captain and organizer of the brutal fights in the camps. With his expert eye, Razin immediately detected that Noah didn't know how to box. That's why he approached him and warned him about the consequences of his lie. That's very dangerous. The fights are going to start very soon, and the commander is a boxing fanatic. They will realize you're not a fighter. They will take you out of the ring, and they will take you to the gas chamber. Far from scaring the young Pole, Zemento set out to teach him basic defense and attack moves so that Noah would be accepted as part of the group. Not only that, but Jacko Razin offered to be his first opponent so they could fake the fight. In that encounter, the professional wrestler held back his strength so that the blows looked spectacular, but without unnecessarily hurting his opponent. Thanks to his experience, the audience left satisfied, without suspicion of any arrangement. Although that first experience in the ring was brutal, Noah Cleger came down with several teeth less, a broken nose, but with the certainty of being part of the team and surviving a painful death thanks to having lied. There are many incredible details in Zemento's story, which includes another legendary Greek contender, but we'll tell you about that later. After several days as a boxer, Noah noticed the differences between being a boxer and being a common prisoner. The latter would work an exhausting 16 hours a day, while they, the fighters, worked between 8 and 11. Additionally, they were given much more food than a common prisoner, although it was still miserable. In the mornings, each boxer received a liter of dark water they called coffee, but it tasted like dirty sewer liquid. They also ate a piece of black bread, and at night, a simple soup with potatoes and bits of old meat. Still, this diet was infinitely better than that of the common prisoner, whose food was not only scarce but generally in poor condition. Sunday was a day of rest, and they were fed an extra piece of sausage. This way they had energy in case the commander sent them to fight.
You go into a ring in order to get beaten by someone else, so what the hell is positive? Positive is that the commander, this Hermann Schwarz, gave out a liter of good soup, of normal soup, meat, potatoes, every evening to every one of his boxers. And this liter of soup has saved people 5-6 months.
Noah Cleger fought 23 times, but he didn't win a single match. All the boxers were better than him and delivered brutal beatings. Although they were friends and supported each other, when they stepped into the ring, they had to hit hard to avoid both contenders being shot. A disfigured face was better than a bullet to the head or a trip to the gas chambers. The truth is, the SS officers didn't care how they fought. They just wanted to see the spectacle and the shedding of blood. They were satisfied with broken teeth and screams of pain. They didn't want to see technique, but suffering. This happened again and again until, in April 1945, they were sent to the Mittelbau-Dora camp, where they stayed for a few days. As the Allied forces approached, the Nazis began to expedite the extermination or transfer process. At that time, they forced Noah and some other boxers to march to the Ravensbrück camp. These were endless walks, exposed to the elements, without water or food. There, thousands of people perished, including a world boxing champion. You heard correctly. Among the tortured prisoners was an elite athlete who is now in the Hall of Fame for Jewish athletes. His name was Victor Perez, a Tunisian who won the featherweight category in 1931 and 1932. under the name Young Perez.
Perez is paying attention to every detail which might help him to victory, for he has the added encouragement of knowing that the fight is being held in his native town, Tunis.
The athlete arrived at the German extermination camp on October 10, 1943. As part of Convoy 60, a group of 1,000 prisoners transported from the internment camp of Drancy in France. The champion's last professional fight had been in the late 1930s, however, under strict orders from the Germans. He had to return to the ring in October 1943. To prepare for his comeback, he was assigned to the most coveted place in all of Auschwitz, the kitchen. There, the work was less intense, and there was access to a greater amount of food. On October 31, 1943, the SS marked the day for the debut of their new favorite beast. It was a gray autumn day. After roll call, a command set up the stage. A regulation ring on a platform and rows of chairs for the SS officers. Neither Perez nor his training companions knew who they would face in the opposite corner. An SS officer, a common prisoner, well-fed and with a history of professional boxing, or perhaps an amateur. Anything was possible. Finally, the first opponent was a soldier from the Wehrmacht, the Reich's infantry. A young man of 6 feet tall and around 90 kilograms who had participated in several fights non-professionally. It was a calm fight. Perez had no trouble winning. Seeing the expression on the faces of the audience when blood spilled, he realized they didn't want to see good sport, but unrestrained violence. The more low blows and blood there were, the better. From then on, he made sure to give them the disgusting show the Nazis were looking for. Due to his abilities, the Tunisian was the favorite entertainment of the sadistic officers. They enjoyed seeing the professional break the teeth and nose of the inexperienced ones who risked getting into the ring just to receive a decent meal after the beating. It was because of this fascination that young Perez received preferential treatment in terms of food and breaks.
When we think of Auschwitz as a death camp, we don't often think the daily-to-daily life of the prisoners there. But it's interesting how the SS guards were using some of the prisoners for entertainment. And Victor Perez, because of his reputation and who he is, he was used to, to be in matches, to box against other prisoners for the SS entertainment.
The soldiers allocated him 3 hours daily for training and fed him properly so he could maintain his muscle mass. To obtain boxing equipment, they arranged for the camp authorities to allow families to send boxing gloves, boots, and sandbags. Unfortunately, Perez suffered the same fate as Noah Cleger. In 1945, as the situation worsened, he was sent on the death marches, during which he died due to a combination of diseases, starvation, and torture inflicted on his body. The Germans squeezed their favorite toy until it broke. Earlier, when discussing Jacko Raisin, we mentioned that he had been a champion in his native Greece. When he fell prisoner, he traveled alongside one of his companions, also a professional wrestler, Salamo Arouch, who survived World War II and took it upon himself to spread the painful and dark stories of the Holocaust boxers. Arouch wasn't very tall, but his build was typical of a boxer from those years. Broad and muscular, with a rugged appearance and noticeable muscles. That's why the guards didn't even have to ask him his profession. He was recruited immediately for the bloody fights. At first he refused, but they informed him that it was either the boxing ring or endless torture in the camp's secret dungeons. There was no choice. He had to put on the gloves and fight for the amusement of the Nazis. According to the memoirs of Salamo Arouch, he remained undefeated during his stay in Auschwitz. The closest he came to falling were 2 brutal draws in which the Greek was in the midst of recovering from an infection. His weak body took punches, accumulated bruises, and even spat blood, but he stayed on his feet. In total, he participated in 208 fights. The rules were not clear. Everything depended on the mood of the guards and the audience. Sometimes, if the fight was violent enough, they were satisfied with what happened between the ropes. In other cases, if the bloodlust was not satisfied, the officers would execute the loser, adding a dark and dramatic element to the victor. Salamo Arouch recalled in interviews that he was usually pitted against men much larger than him, both in height and weight. The German audience found entertainment in such morbid fights that could end in a wild beating. On one occasion, Arouch managed to defeat a man weighing 115 kilograms in just 18 seconds. His skills allowed him to survive the war, but at a very high price. The rest of his family was executed. His parents, siblings, and cousins perished in the gas chambers, only to be incinerated in the infamous Nazi ovens. Arouch was transferred from Auschwitz to Bergen-Belsen in January 1945, as the conflict was heading towards the inevitable defeat of the Third Reich. As we mentioned in the other cases, the SS officers were determined to accelerate their extermination task during those fateful months before the end of the war. Fortunately, Arouch managed to survive, and even met his future wife, Marta Yechel, a young Jew who was imprisoned in the same concentration camp. Once the conflict ended, the boxer continued his career while giving motivational talks about his experience in hell. In 1989, Arouch collaborated with the screenwriters and director of the movie Triumph of the Spirit, which depicted his life in the extermination camps. As part of the project, he accompanied the production on several trips to the places where everything happened, even to his former and precarious quarters.
My name is Salamo Arouch. I born in Greece, and my state is Salonika. And come to Germany, SS, Gestapo, and take all Jews to the concentration camp in Poland. And Auschwitz, Birkenau. Here's my bed. I sleep down now.
The real Salamo has been here quite a bit. He added to the authenticity of the movie.
All my family is in here, in the crematorium. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister, everybody. Come to look here.
While the play takes several artistic liberties, it was a resounding success. Among all the boxing stories that occurred during the Holocaust, one stands out because it truly seems like it's taken from a Hollywood movie. It's time to meet Henry Haft, the Jewish Pole who survived extermination thanks to the power of his gifted fists. Born in Belchatow in 1925, he was orphaned at the tender age of 3. He was only 14 when the Third Reich invaded his country, ushering in World War II. During the early years of the occupation, Haft survived by trafficking all kinds of goods alongside his older brother, but soon luck ran out. Due to his Jewish ancestry, he was imprisoned in various forced labor camps operated by the Nazis. There he experienced daily pain and torture, as well as extreme hunger and constant lack of rest to face the workday. Because of his physical build and height, in 1943, an SS officer selected him from his group to be a boxer. He was the ideal entertainment, a young Jew of great size breaking his fists against the faces of his companions.
I got the respect because I was too strong for anybody to mess with me. I was a very strong person. Strong build, strong physically very strong. Not to be complicated by any small fry which tried to take power over me. I was always a step ahead of them.
Haft's first fights took place in the Jarovno concentration camp, which was located in a coal mine north of Auschwitz. There, in addition to working long hours extracting that dark and precious material, the men participated in fights for the entertainment of the staff. In these facilities, the Jewish boxer had a total of 76 fights. German generals and lieutenants bet money and entertained themselves with this bloody spectacle. In the fights, they pitted Jews against each other. The one left standing won permission to live another day, while the loser was sacrificed like an animal.
Were you able to eat better because of this?
Yes, I did. I did eat better. I did bring in some. I had a cousin of mine in camp. I brought him in some food, more food, which I did bring in. And I had privileges, a lot of privileges. One day I came in camp, which I didn't know it. My cousin was with me. I came in the afternoon. They hanged him. I didn't know it. If I knew it, I could have saved him. As a matter of fact,
how could you have saved him?
Because I had the guy was in charge from camp. I had him in my pocket.
The year 1945 arrived, when the Jarovno camp was dismantled due to the constant advance of the Red Army troops. Most of the prisoner population was sent westward. The journey was made on foot. It was the famous death marches, in which thousands of inmates succumbed to lack of food and proper rest. It was during these deadly journeys that Haft managed to escape. During his escape, the boxer encountered a German soldier whom he beat to death. Using the strength and knowledge he gained during those infamous fights in the depths of the concentration camp. Once the officer was dead, he took his uniform and dressed in it to blend in among the small villages that were still standing. This challenge was not easy. On one occasion, an elderly couple discovered the young man's true identity. As they were about to report him to the authorities, his fists intervened. Haft killed both people. It was a tough choice that he regretted for the rest of his life, even though he had no other option if he wanted to continue his escape. After wandering for weeks, the young man found permanent refuge in a displaced persons camp operated by U.S. troops in the liberated portion of Germany. It was the end of his life as a prisoner. But during those difficult years when he had to fight to eat, he learned the craft of boxing. When the war ended, Haft was only 20 years old, so he made a living as a non-professional fighter for a few years. Such was his success that in 1947, he won the Munich Amateur Heavyweight Belt, a competition organized by the U.S. Army. He received the prize from General Lucius Clay, one of the greatest honors in this survivor's life. The stories we learn today are a less commented aspect of the Holocaust. They are the hardships of those who had to turn their physical ability into a weapon to survive one more day. Stepping over their weaker comrades to get food, or just forgiveness to avoid being gassed like animals. It is another instance to understand that the Third Reich's annihilation plan was not only a cold killing machinery, but also a construction of hatred and brutality. Thus, we come to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this content and want to continue discovering the most impactful events of the 20th century, we invite you to subscribe and activate notifications. This way, you can stay updated on each of our news. Without further ado, we bid farewell until the next installment of Military History. Thank you for joining us.